Hi, this is Chuck.
And this is Karen.
And this is our show,
What If It Really Works?
A Practical Guide to Spirituality. And Karen, who is this man?
We are just so excited today because we're going to be getting the opportunity to share Dr. Joe Dispenza with you. And Joe is a chiropractor. He's a neuroscientist. He's an author. He is a star from What the Bleep. But there are many other pieces to his personality and who he is and the work that he's here to do on the planet. So we welcome you. Thank you so much for being with us
Thank
today.
you. I'm happy to be with both of you.
I'm holding in my hand your latest book, or at least the latest one that's been printed now, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Love Your Mind and Create a New One. The one thing that I experienced in reading this book was that I spent more time marking and underlining than I did anything, because it seemed like every single thing was so pertinent, and it's very exciting to me to recognize it. So I'd appreciate if you would share with our readers what this book is, our listeners, what this book is really about, and the level of understanding that you would like for them to have about it.
Well, I think this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. I think this is a time in history where we need to know how. And after the movie What the Bleep, and after my first book, Evolve, the most common question that people asked me when I was lecturing around the world was, how do you do it? And why is it so hard to change? Those were the two questions. And so, in order to meet people's needs, we started teaching workshops and teaching people the how-to. And people said, what do you do? So I created Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself as a real how-to manual to go along with my other book, Evolve. And the idea is really simple. Knowledge is the precursor to experience. The more knowledge you have, the more prepared you are for an experience. And when you understand what you're doing and why, and you assign meaning to it, you get better results. So I thought, well, if I could break down science into a simple form, and I think science is the contemporary language of mysticism. I think science is the way to explain the unexplainable. So if you bridge a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience to understand the mind and the brain, you bring in a little neuroendocrinology and you understand emotions, and you understand cells and receptor sites and biology and epigenetics and how to signal genes, and how the expression of proteins is equal to the expression of life and health, and how your observation has an effect on the nature of reality. If you can piece those simple concepts together in a way that gives you an understanding, a model, and then when you get down to the how-to, you'll know exactly what you're doing and why. So when we started teaching the workshops, it took a little time for people to really start producing great results. But in a very short amount of time, we started seeing people doing the uncommon, starting to do the supernatural. And so Hay House asked me to write the book, and they said, could you make it in two parts? Can you condense the knowledge and the science in one part, and then in the second part, can you give them a how-to? So when you get to the second part of the book, you understand exactly what you're doing if you read the first part of the book. And there's a meditation that goes along with it to help people really to go inward and make change happen from the inside out.
Well, and the nice part is that you gave the link so that people go in and download that meditation so they can actually, you can walk them through it. I think that's something that's very special.
Yeah, and I love to demystify meditation, and I love to make it simple that people understand what they're doing. And so if you use a little brainwave technology and you understand how the brain works, and you understand what meditation means, and you keep it relatively simple, and we all do this anyway. It's not something that you have to work to do. We already know how to do this. It's just making it a skill. So when you have a moment where you're understanding that thought, the way you think, has some effect on your life, then you have to get to the point where you are just the thought alone. in order to have an effect on your life, which means you have to overcome your body, you have to overcome the conditions and your associations to things in your environment, and you have to overcome time. And that depersonalization of becoming nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, no time, that is when we become pure consciousness, and that is when we walk through the door to the quantum field. And so the research that we've been doing over the last year or so, without a doubt, shows us that when people get beyond themselves is when they do the supernatural. When they get beyond their identity is when they were able to perform the uncommon and the miraculous. And so I worked in making the book simple enough to understand that people already know how to do this. They just have to remind themselves on how to do it and make the changes they need to make.
And it's a practice, because the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Sure.
At releasing the old. The important part, as I understand it, is you got to be able to release the old before you can look at what the new is that you want to accomplish, so you can get in coherence with it.
Exactly. Well, think about this. I mean, the brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. The brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned or experienced in your life. And emotions are the end product of past experiences, and if thoughts and actions are etched in the brain, and then experiences and emotions are conditioned into the body, and you're feeling the same way every day and you're thinking the same way every day, then for the most part, most people are thinking in the past, right? And they're actually feeling allows their body to believe they're in the same past experiences. So nobody likes to light a match in a dark place, but the process of change requires unlearning and relearning. It requires breaking the habit of the old self and reinventing a new self. It's what we say in neuroscience, pruning synaptic connections and sprouting new connections. Unmemorizing emotions that are stored in the body, and then reconditioning the body to a new mind and to a new emotion. Unsignaling old genes and resignaling new genes, deprogramming and reprogramming, losing your mind and creating a new one, pulling your energy out of the past and then using that same attention energy to drive a new future. And so if you don't take a look at the past that's keeping you as the same self, and if 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 is a set of memorized behaviors and emotional reactions, beliefs and perceptions and attitudes, then the moment you return back into your life, you go unconscious. So the first step is becoming conscious of that unconscious self to such a degree that you would never go unconscious in your waking day. Now that is when you start to finalize the past, because when you overcome the emotions that keep you anchored to the past, that's when you're seeing your future through a new lens. And you can't create a new future holding on to the past. It's biologically impossible. So that process of engaging in the old self and becoming so familiar with the thoughts, the behaviors, and emotions that keep you anchored there means you're no longer that program. It means now you're a consciousness observing the program. And that's when you begin to objectify your subjective self. You become removed from the old personality. So, yeah, that's the difficult part. And most people wait for crisis or trauma or disease or diagnosis or loss. That's when they finally say, "Hey, I'm ready to change." You know. And my message is, why wait? You can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. And I think people are astute enough and informed enough at this time in history where people really want to make the changes without crisis.